中共副部长刘建超被广泛传言将成为中国外交部长的接班人，此职位由前外交部长秦刚担任，后来由中国共产党官员在没有明确解释的情况下免去。在今天上午的外交关系委员会会议上，他阐述了中国在一些全球最紧迫问题上的立场。在发表准备好的演讲后，阐明了中国经济的官方立场，并重新确认了与美国保持稳定关系的承诺后，
China stands ready to work together with the United States to truly implement the San Francisco vision and bring China-US scientific and technological exchanges back to the right track.
刘部长回答了外交关系委员会主席 Michael Froman 的提问。
Terrific. Thank you very much for laying that out for us. You mentioned the recent work conference, the Foreign Affairs Work Conference, where I understand one of the issues discussed was how to make sure there's a correct understanding of China as a trustworthy, lovable, and respectable country. Now, at the same time, President Xi was calling diplomatic relations a struggle. He asked his diplomats to engage in a fighting spirit, and he called for a diplomatic iron army. Are we likely to see a return to wolf warrior diplomacy, and how is that lovable?
Froman 在提问时批评了中国外交官的所谓战狼外交和习近平主席要求中国使节组建外交铁军的说法。刘部长的回应或许预示了中国外交的下一阶段。
I don't really believe that there has always been a kind of wolf warriors diplomacy, and there's no talk about coming back to that diplomacy. But when you talk about the kind of iron diplomatic army, he really means that the diplomats, Chinese diplomats, both at home and around the world, should stay disciplined and well, disciplined, and in terms of making sure that they have very strong moral integration and work hard. So it's not really something about a kind of wolf warrior, quote unquote.
刘解释说，习主席所说的铁人外交军是指中国外交官应该保持纪律，努力工作，并且具有非常强烈的道德整合，否认曾经努力创建外交战狼。强调纪律和强烈的道德整合回溯到刘在中纪委国际部工作的日子，该部门是中国的反腐败机构。当被问及他在这个职务中的角色时，刘解释说，他的工作主要集中在中国努力遣返逃离中国的被指控腐败的党员。
And forgive me for asking about one fascinating item of your biography, an impressive biography, both at the Zhejiang and at the Central Commission level for discipline inspection. Discipline inspection, is that like what federal prosecutors do to our politicians in New Jersey? Or is that enforcing ideological uniformity in some way?
Well, I prefer to take your second question. I started my career as a diplomat in 1986, and that led me up until I was ambassador to the Philippines and Indonesia, and then assistant foreign minister. Then there was a very strong campaign in the Communist Party of China on strengthening the building of the party. And one aspect of this campaign would be to fight with a stronger hand against corruption, because at that time corruption was really bad and rampant in China, and that was dangerous for the party and for China, the country, and people hated that. And there was a phenomenon, or that, some government officials, civil servants, members of the Communist Party, when they committed corruption and become criminal suspects, they tried to flee to escape the punishment. So they ended up with fleeing China to other parts of the world. And certainly the United States was one of their destinations. So I think that they decided to have somebody who is more experienced in international cooperation. And for this job is international cooperation in law enforcement. So then they chose me. I don't know why, but that happened. So basically, you could tell from the name, it's more about discipline. It's more about fighting corruption. It's more about punishing people who have violated the charter of the Communist Party of China, and also the people who violated Chinese laws. So with regard to the corruption, they violate not only the charter of the Communist Party, the disciplinary rules, they also violate the law. So then, when they flee the country, in the past there was nothing could be done about them. But then we decided to take them back with the support and help from our partners, our colleagues from other countries. Here in the United States, we did got help from the Department of Justice and your Land Security Department.
Homeland Security.
Yeah, Homeland Security Department. So we managed to get them back on the basis of the U.S. law and on the basis of Chinese law. We did have really very useful cooperation with each other in taking back to China some of the criminal suspects.
他解释说，在纪委的工作中，他的任务是与那些收留逃犯的国家政府进行谈判。这是中国共产党内反腐委员会日益重要的崛起的又一个例子。中国内部政治受到一系列涉及中纪委的动荡事件的影响，在2023年12月29日，由于中纪委自2023年7月开始进行的一项调查，解放军火箭军2位领导被替换，导致9名高级军官被免去职务。12月29日被撤职的所有9名军官，要么曾在解放军火箭军服务，要么曾在军事采购方面工作。在一篇 National Review 的文章，该文章警告称，尽管刘建超在外交关系中心迷住了与会者，但他并非温和派，而是一位坚定立场的人，负责包括臭名昭著的狐狸猎手行动在内的北京全球绑架行动。尽管刘建超声称他的角色主要是与各国进行谈判，并利用各国的法律框架进行引渡谈判，但狐狸猎手行动被指责是一场以打击腐败为幌子的运动，旨在打压海外的中国意见人士。最黑暗的指控包括中国人民解放军和国家安全部的机构参与的行动，涉及威胁和暴力手段。刘还回答了与会观众的问题，包括来自《纽约时报》的记者 Catherine Kingsbury。
Morning, I'm Katie Kingsbury from the New York Times. First, I wanted to affirm that on behalf of my industry colleagues, we would welcome the opportunity to report more from China in the future. But my question is actually about China's nuclear arsenal. Could you comment on what efforts China is undertaking to build its current arsenal and what potential for cooperation between China, the United States, and Russia there is in terms of new rules around use and testing of those weapons?
该报自2008年以来一直在中国被封锁。《纽约时报》目前只有3名驻中国记者，自2020年3月大多数记者被驱逐以来。当《纽约时报》的 Kingsbury 在关于中国核武库的问题之前先表态，记者将来很欢迎有更多机会在中国报道。这似乎与2001年发生的一起事件有关。当时《纽约时报》记者会见时任江泽民主席，并询问为何该报的网站在中国被封锁。根据《时报》关于这一事件的一篇文章，江主席似乎不知道，同意调查。几天之内 NewYorkTimes.com 在中国再次可以访问。在接下来的10年里，《时报》的网站时而被中国大陆读者屏蔽，但文章偶尔会被阻止查看。2012年，《纽约时报》网站再次被封锁。在2015年， 刘曾担任外交部信息司司长，负责处理新闻关系以及宣传中国外交政策。然而，刘对 Kingsbury 希望允许更多记者进入中国的期望只是微笑而已。刘部长通过直接陈述中国政府对核武库的官方立场，回答了 Kingsbury 的问题。
Thank you. China does attach great importance to the nuclear security in the world, and China made it very clear that China will not, on the very first day that China developed the nuclear bomb, we say that China will not be the first one to use the nuclear bomb, and China will not use the nuclear bomb against any country, the non-nuclear country.
在被问及中国与伊朗的关系，特别是在以色列哈马斯冲突的背景下，刘先生确认了中国与以色列之间密切的贸易伙伴关系，但强调说，当涉及到中东问题和危机的整体情况时，中国确实站在阿拉伯国家这一边。
Israel was the first state in the Middle East to recognize the People's Republic of China in 1950. And over the more recent years, you have developed very strong economic relations with Israel. In fact, are its second largest trading partner. And I think also manage part of the port of Haifa right now. Yet, on October the 7th, China has not yet condemned the terrorist attack on Israel. And despite the fact that you yourselves have been victims of Islamic terrorism in the past. Could you explain why that is? I understand that you have relations with the Arab countries, with Iran, etc. But you could still maintain those relations while still condemning that attack. And would you do so today?
Let me correct you. Let me say that we appreciate the fact that Israel was one of the first countries that recognized China. And for many, many years, China and Israel have really very good and cooperative and warm relations with each other. And also our people share a lot of good emotions towards each other. So that's the fundamentals of China's relationship. And when it comes to the general picture of Middle East crisis and Middle East issue, China does stand on the side of the Arab countries. I don't need to explain more on that. But what I want to correct you is that on the very first day of the October the 7th attack, China did condemn the attack on the civilians. So if you track the record, you'll find that. But now, the overuse of force and the obvious revengeful retaliation by the Israelis on Palestinians is something that is also unacceptable to us. And that results in tremendous humanitarian sufferings and crisis. So we do hope that the crisis, the conflict could come to an end, and the Israelis should stop, behave in such a manner, and so there could be a restoration of order. And China does see eye to eye with many countries in the world that the two-country plan must be adopted. So when you talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I do believe that the UN resolutions must be adopted, and that people are condemning Hamas, which is correct in a way that they target on the civilians and attack them. But on the other side, the Israelis should also think about their behavior in building fences, in the settling on the Palestinian land, on driving the Palestinian people out. So the Palestinian people, they should have the right to come back to their homeland, to restore their sovereignty, and also to establish their own country. So I think that a lot remains to be done. And there needs to be international consensus and also concerted efforts in achieving this. Thank you.
中国的这一立场与世界上绝大多数国家一致。在12月12日联合国有关加沙停火的决议中，有153个国家投票赞成，只有10个国家投票反对，其中包括美国和以色列。刘还提到，在他最近访问伊朗时，伊朗官员告诉他，他们并未支持哈马斯在10月7日对以色列的袭击，也没有事先知道这次袭击。
We now have Iranian-supported Houthi forces interrupting the flow of ships in the Red Sea. No country is more dependent on the free flow of products from one sea to another than China. Are you concerned about this, and are you urging Iran to urge the Houthis to stop interrupting this important trade route?
We do stand very strongly for peaceful, navigation of cargo ships in that part of the world because it's essential for the world's economy. But I'm not commenting on your indication that Iran is supporting the Houthis in this particular operation. I was visiting Iran about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where we were talking about the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. And I believe that the Iranians were moving about this conflict in a very prudent way. They were telling me that they were not involved in any kind of support of the Hamas in the fight, in the attack on Israel. And they did not really know beforehand that the attack was going to happen. So they did not really give any military support or even military advice to the Hamas. So I think that they are being very, very prudent in this regard.
他表示不会对有关伊朗在最近也门船只扣押事件中支持安萨尔、阿拉、胡塞武装的指控发表评论。有强有力的证据表明，伊朗积极向中东的民兵组织提供武器和培训，包括黎巴嫩的真主党和也门的安萨尔、阿拉，以及其他在对抗 ISIS 战争中作为美国盟友的伊拉克和叙利亚的民兵组织。伊朗可能对哈马斯在10月7日的袭击毫不知情或没有直接控制哈马斯的行动，尽管伊朗可能向哈马斯提供武器，但可能没有对哈马斯的行动具有如此直接的控制。刘先生对于伊朗支持也门的安萨尔、阿拉武装的问题的避而不谈，可能被解读为对两国合作中的一个关键障碍的暗示。中国经济严重依赖通过红海的航运路线，而这些路线目前正受到安萨尔、阿拉的封锁。在反复询问中国在台湾问题上的立场，特别是关注本周即将举行的台湾选举时，刘再次确认了一个中国政策，并表示中国对台湾的立场明确、坚定、不变。
What would Mao say about the Taiwan question in 2024?
The unification of China and also has always been the dream of the Chinese people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait. So I think that this is the firm and clear and strong policy of the Chinese government and the strong aspiration of the Chinese people. So apart from that, I think there's no need to explain our position on the Taiwan issue.
All right.
对于中共对民进党总统候选人赖清德的分裂分子和麻烦制造者描述的问题，他对此回答的保守可能是有策略的。美国长期以来一直在台湾问题上保持战略模糊立场。拜登总统多次表示，美国军队将保卫台湾免受北京潜在地面入侵的威胁。
To be clear, sir, U.S. forces, U.S. men and women would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion.
Yes.
但白宫随后收回了他的言论。虽然中国一国两制的立场明确表明台湾最终应与大陆统一，但美国在台湾主权问题上的立场故意保持模糊。在美国的记者和中国专家中，刘因其幽默而广受欢迎，与外交关系委员会主席弗罗曼打趣关于熊猫外交恢复的可能性，并就战狼外交展开交锋。 他还以坦率解释他在中纪委的职务，以及真诚地表示中纪委确实为人民带来了正义。也许比刘的坦率更重要的是他的遗漏，在回答有关台湾的问题时，他没有提到赖清德的名字，也没有直接评论中国对台湾选举的预测或立场。
Thank you for doing this. I'm Trudy Witten. I'm an international affairs columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Sir, the Taiwan elections coming up this week, everyone is very focused on how China will react to the results. If the DPP candidate, Vice President Lei, should win, China has denounced him as a separatist, but he says he would maintain the status quo and engage with China. What would be China's reaction if the DPP should win this election?
Oh, thank you very much for the question. But at this juncture, what I want to say is that China's position on the Taiwan issue remains clear, strong, and unchanged. So that's what I'm going to tell you at this moment. Thank you.
当《纽约时报》的凯瑟琳·金斯伯里问及中国的核武库时，他表示，也许有关核武器规则的真正对话应该发生在美国和俄罗斯之间。他对金斯伯里希望有更多记者进入中国的期望保持沉默，这本身可以被理解为一种评论在可预见的将来。NewYorkTimes.com 网站不太可能可访问，也没有保证中国将允许更多《纽约时报》记者在中国国内报道。